Commander Jessica Maverick Reynolds stood on the bridge of the UES Persistence, watching as another sophisticated Confederation vessel deliberately adjusted its course to avoid coming within 1,000 kilometers of her ship. The slight didn't bother her anymore. She'd grown used to the sideways looks and barely concealed sneers from the more prestigious crews. "They're just jealous of our unique charm," Lieutenant Mike Rodriguez called from his weapons station, his fingers dancing across a console that combined sleek Confederation tech with what looked like salvaged gaming hardware. The setup shouldn't have worked, but like everything else aboard the Persistence, it somehow did. Unique is one word for it, Reynolds muttered, running her hand along a support beam that still bore scorch marks from their last power surge. The Persistence had been cobbled together from 3 decommissioned Earth vessels and whatever alien tech they could salvage or trade for. Their main reactor was a hybrid monstrosity that combined human fusion technology with crystalline power matrices recovered from an abandoned hegemony outpost. Chief Engineer Diana Martinez's voice crackled over the internal comm, carrying the distinct sound of sparking circuits in the background. "Commander, you might want to warn the crew. I'm about to test the new power distribution grid, and there's a 60% chance it'll either give us unlimited energy or turn the coffee maker into a small sun." Reynolds sighed, reaching for the ship-wide announcement system. "All hands, brace for possible power fluctuations. Engineering is doing engineering things." She paused. "And someone please check on Dr. Thompson's experimental plants in hydroponics. Last time they evolved sentience and tried to stage a coup." The bridge crew chuckled, used to the daily chaos of serving aboard what the Confederation officially classified as an experimental multi-system integration testbed. Bureaucrats speak for, "We have no idea what this thing is." Unofficially, they were known as that human junk heap or the lucky dumpster. A soft hum built through the deck plates as Martinez initiated her test. The main lights flickered, and for a moment, Reynolds could have sworn she saw the holographic displays showing their position simultaneously in 3 different star systems. Then everything stabilized, more or less. "Test successful," Martinez announced triumphantly. "We're now operating at 112% efficiency, which technically shouldn't be possible. Also, the matter replicator in the mess hall is now producing everything with a slight taste of blueberries." Reynolds made a mental note to update their daily status report to Confederation Command. They always enjoyed her creative explanations for the Persistence's peculiarities. Last week's highlight had been explaining how their navigation system had somehow begun calculating faster-than-light trajectories using what appeared to be interpretive dance algorithms. "Incoming transmission," announced Communications Officer Sarah Foster, her own console a bizarre hybrid of Earth touchscreens and crystalline Confederation interfaces. "It's the Confederation flagship Eclipse. They're requesting a visual inspection of our vessel." Reynolds straightened her uniform, which, like everything else aboard, was a unique blend of standard issue and necessary modifications. "Put them through." The stern face of Admiral Kane materialized on the main screen, his expression suggesting he'd just bitten into something unpleasant. "Commander Reynolds, I see your vessel is still operational." "Surprising. 8 months and counting, Admiral," Reynolds replied cheerfully. "We're even starting to get predictable results from our hybrid systems. Yesterday we managed to go a full hour without any reality-bending side effects." The Admiral's frown deepened. "I have a wager pool running with several other fleet commanders. The majority bet your ship wouldn't survive 6 months. You're costing me credits, Commander." "Happy to disappoint, sir. Would you like a tour?" "Our artificial gravity has been acting up, but Dr. Thompson says the temporary weightlessness is doing wonders for his experimental coffee beans." "That won't be necessary." The Admiral's eye twitched. "Just try not to violate any fundamental laws of physics this week." Kane out. As the transmission ended, Rodriguez laughed. "You know, Commander, sometimes I think they're more afraid of us than they are of any actual enemy." Reynolds smiled, watching as the Persistence's hybrid drive created a swirling pattern of quantum distortions in their wake, another impossible side effect they'd learned to live with. Maybe they should be, Lieutenant. Maybe they should be. In the distance, the Eclipse adjusted its course once again, maintaining its safe distance from the unpredictable human vessel. None of them could have known that in just a few short weeks, the Persistence's many quirks would become the key to humanity's survival. I'm telling you, Commander, something's not right with these readings. Lieutenant Rodriguez squinted at his hybrid sensor display, which currently featured both standard electromagnetic scans and what appeared to be a psychedelic-like show. The Persistence had been tasked with salvaging equipment from an abandoned mining facility in the Outer Rim, the kind of mission other ships considered beneath them. Commander Reynolds leaned over his station, watching as patterns shifted and swirled across the screen. Define not right, Lieutenant. On this ship, that could mean anything from a minor quantum fluctuation to an impending tea party, with alternate dimension versions of ourselves. These energy signatures. Rodriguez adjusted several mismatched control knobs, one of which was definitely taken from an ancient Earth toaster. They're like echoes, but they're echoing something that isn't there. Chief Engineer Martinez's voice joined the conversation from engineering. The quantum matrix is picking up something too. Remember those hegemony crystals we salvaged last month? They're resonating with, well, nothing, which should be impossible, but that's our specialty. Reynolds straightened up, her instincts warning her that this was more than their usual brand of weirdness. Sarah, anything on communications? Nothing explicit. Officer Foster replied, adjusting her headset. But there's a strange pattern in the background radiation. It's almost like someone's trying very hard to be quiet. Commander. Rodriguez's voice jumped an octave. Multiple contacts, bearing 347. Wait, they're gone. But the echoes are stronger. Reynolds felt the familiar tension of combat readiness creep into her shoulders. Diana, I need everything you can give me from those sensors, even if it breaks several laws of physics. Mike, start warming up those hybrid weapon systems of yours. Sarah, get me a channel to Confederation Command. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, even as various systems sparked, hummed, or occasionally changed color. The Persistence's unique configuration might make it a laughingstock, but it had also created something unprecedented, a warship that operated outside the boundaries of conventional technology. Confederation Command responding, Foster announced. Text only. They seem annoyed we're bothering them. Reynolds dictated quickly. Unknown contacts detected in Sector 7. Evidence suggests cloaked vessels using advanced quantum masking technology. Request immediate investigation. The response came back almost instantly. UEA's Persistence. Your sensor systems are non-standard and unreliable. No other vessels in the sector report anomalies. Return to assigned salvage duties. They're not even going to look, Rodriguez muttered, still adjusting his controls. Wait, Commander, I'm getting more readings. These energy signatures. They're moving in formation. Military formation. Reynolds made a quick decision. Diana, remember that modification you suggested last week? The one that would let us trace quantum wake patterns. The completely unsafe one that might turn our sensor array into a miniature black hole. That modification. That's the one. Do it. Commander, Foster interjected. That's against at least 15 Confederation safety protocols. Reynolds smiled grimly. Good thing we're already considered a joke then. They can't damage our reputation any further. She keyed the ship-wide comm. All hands, this is the commander. Prepare for possible sensor system overload. Also, if anyone's experiments start achieving sentience, now would be a good time to shut them down. The next few minutes were tense as Martinez worked her questionable magic on their sensors. Warning lights flashed, gravity fluctuated, and at one point everyone's voices became temporarily reversed. Then suddenly, the main display cleared. Holy! Rodriguez breathed. The screen showed dozens of ship-sized shadows moving through supposedly empty space, their quantum signatures now visible to the Persistence's jerry-rigged detection system. They were clearly warships, their formations suggesting a military scouting force. "Sarah," Reynolds ordered, "prepare a full data packet for Confederation Command. Include everything we've recorded. Mike, start analyzing their movement patterns. I want to know their capabilities. Diana, try to keep our sensors from imploding." As her crew worked, Reynolds watched the phantom ships moving through their sector. The Confederation might dismiss their warning, but she knew what she was seeing. Someone was preparing for war, and only the Persistence's impossible combination of salvage technology could detect them. "Well," she muttered to herself, "looks like being a joke might just save everyone's lives." The distress call came at 300 ship time, just as Commander Reynolds was trying to convince the mess hall replicator to make coffee that didn't taste like quantum physics gone wrong. "Commander, to the bridge, emergency." Foster's voice carried an edge Reynolds had never heard before. "Confederation Battle Group 7 is under attack." Reynolds sprinted to the bridge, arriving to find her crew already at battle stations. The main display showed a scene of devastation. 3 Confederation cruisers drifting powerless, a 4th breaking apart under assault from weapons that seemed to phase through their shields like they didn't exist. "Those are our phantom ships," Rodriguez confirmed grimly. "Dozens of them. Just dropped their cloaks. They're calling themselves the Voraxians." "Time to nearest Confederation response force," Reynolds demanded. 40 minutes at best," Foster replied. "Battle Group 7 won't last 5. Reynolds watched as another Confederation ship's shields failed completely. The Voraxian weapons, some kind of quantum-phased energy beams, ignored every defense the advanced warships possessed. 300,000 colonists on the nearby settlement would be defenseless once the battle group fell. "Diana," Reynolds keyed engineering, "remember how our hybrid weapons kept having those unfortunate power fluctuations?" "You mean the ones that made Admiral Kane accuse us of violating the laws of physics? Those fluctuations. Can you make them fluctuate on purpose? Say, match the quantum signature of those enemy weapons." There was a pause filled with the sound of rapid calculations and what might have been a small explosion. "Maybe, but it could overload our whole power grid. We'd be flying blind, shooting blind, and probably violating several fundamental constants of the universe." "Perfect." Reynolds straightened in her command chair. "All hands, this is the commander. We're about to do something incredibly stupid. Our usual level of stupid wasn't working, so we're going to exceed recommended stupidity levels by several orders of magnitude." The crew's response was immediate and enthusiastic. They'd long since learned that on the Persistence, stupid usually meant just crazy enough to work. "Mike, plot us an attack vector. Sarah, warn the Confederation ships to get clear, if they still can. Diana, make our weapons as unstable as possible." The Persistence surged forward, its hybrid drive creating a wake of quantum distortions that their sensors showed matched the Voraxian energy patterns. The enemy ships, previously focused on finishing off Battle Group 7, turned to face this new threat. "They're scanning us," Foster reported. "Their targeting systems seem confused." "Our power fluctuations," Rodriguez grinned. "Their quantum-phased weapons can't get a lock because we're not maintaining a consistent quantum state. We're too broken to break." "Weapons range in 30 seconds, Martinez called out. "Power grid is at 140% capacity and rising. Also, several systems are now operating in theoretical dimensions that technically don't exist." Reynolds gripped her chair as reality flickered around them. "Mike, target their lid ship. Let's show them what happens when you push around the fleet's biggest joke." The Persistence's main guns, a horrifying combination of human plasma cannons, salvaged hegemony crystal matrices, and what might have been modified mining lasers, fired. The shots rippled through space, their energy signatures matching, and then disrupting the Voraxian quantum phase state. The enemy flagship's shields, designed to phase through normal space, couldn't cope with weapons that operated on the same principle. The blast tore through their defenses, splitting the massive warship in two. Direct hit. Rodriguez shouted over the sound of their own systems threatening to tear themselves apart. Their shields are useless against our weapons. Multiple Varaxian ships breaking formation, Foster reported. They're retreating. As the enemy fleet disappeared back into cloak, Reynolds allowed herself a small smile. Sarah, get me Confederation Command. Tell them the Persistence just saved their premier battle group using technology they called a joke. They're responding, Foster said after a moment. They're calling it an improbable statistical anomaly resulting from non-standard equipment usage. Of course they are. Reynolds watched as their power grid slowly stabilized, more or less. Diana, how's our hybrid drive holding up? We're still technically breaking several laws of physics, but at least now we're doing it on purpose. Around them, the surviving Confederation ships stared in bewilderment at the jury-rigged vessel that had just turned their certain defeat into victory. The Persistence might still be a joke, but no one was laughing anymore. The Persistence limped back to Confederation Station Delta, trailing quantum distortions like breadcrumbs through space. In engineering, Chief Engineer Martinez stared at power readouts that seemed to be displaying numbers in at least 3 different mathematical systems, one of which she suspected hadn't been invented yet. So, Commander Reynolds said, entering engineering with 2 cups of coffee that somehow smelled like temporal paradoxes, want to tell me how we actually survived that fight? Martinez accepted the coffee, noting that the liquid seemed to be moving slightly slower than it should. I've been analyzing our sensor logs. Commander, what we did out there, it shouldn't have worked, but the reason it did work is fascinating. She pulled up a holographic display, which flickered between normal space and what appeared to be interpretive geometric jazz. See our power grid. The fluctuations we thought were flaws. They're actually creating quantum interference patterns that match the Varaxians' phase shift technology. In English, Diana, some of us didn't get our degrees in impossible physics. We're basically broadcasting quantum static on their frequency. Martinez grinned. It's like trying to target a ship that exists in multiple states at once. Our hybrid drive's instability is actually generating a kind of protective chaos. Reynolds watched the display, where the Persistence's power signature danced like a drunken butterfly. So our biggest flaw is actually our greatest defense. Exactly. And there's more. Martinez brought up weapon diagnostics. Remember how our salvaged hegemony crystals kept having those odd resonance issues? Turns out they're naturally attuned to the same quantum frequency the Varaxians use. We're not just fighting them. We're using their own technological principles against them. The ship's internal comm crackled. Commander, Rodriguez called from the bridge. You might want to see this. Confederation security is approaching. They look serious. Of course they are, Reynolds muttered. Heaven forbid we save their fleet without proper paperwork. Minutes later, she stood on the bridge as a team of Confederation investigators boarded, led by a stone-faced official who introduced himself as Inspector Collins. Commander Reynolds, he began, you are charged with reckless endangerment of a military vessel, unauthorized modification of standard equipment, and he checked his tablet, violation of 17 different physics regulations. Would you prefer we had let Battle Group 7 be destroyed? Reynolds asked mildly. Your success was an aberration, Collins stated. Our analysts suggest it was merely a statistical. Oh, shut up about statistics. Martinez burst out, storming onto the bridge with her holographic displays in tow. Look at this data. Really look at it. We've discovered something revolutionary here. She launched into a rapid-fire explanation of quantum interference patterns and phase shift harmonics, most of which seemed to give Collins a headache. But as she displayed the battle footage, something unexpected happened. The video started circulating through the station's network, then through the Confederation's military channels. Finally, it reached civilian networks. The Persistence, that laughingstock of the fleet, standing alone against an enemy that had shredded the Confederation's finest ships. "Mom," Foster called out suddenly. "We're receiving messages. Hundreds of them. Other human ships. They want to know how we did it. They want to modify their systems too." Collins looked increasingly uncomfortable as more messages flooded in. "This is highly irregular. The Confederation Council will need to. The Council will need to adapt." A new voice interrupted. Admiral Kane himself stepped onto the bridge, looking like he'd swallowed something sour but educational. "Commander Reynolds, your court-martial is suspended. Chief Engineer Martinez, I want a full briefing on these modifications." "Sir," Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "The Varaxians attacked 2 more battle groups while you were limping back here. We lost all but 3 ships. But those 3," he gestured at Martinez's displays, "they were the ones with the most jury-rig human modifications, the ones that didn't quite follow Confederation standards." Reynolds shared a look with her crew. "Are you saying what I think you're saying, Admiral?" "Unfortunately, yes." Kane sighed heavily. "Commander Reynolds, I need you to teach our fleet how to break itself. Properly." Martinez grinned as her impossible readings continued to dance across the screens. "Don't worry, sir. Breaking things is our specialty. This is either going to be brilliant, or we're about to create the biggest fireworks show in Confederation history." Commander Reynolds, now Commodore Reynolds, watched as 3 human vessels underwent their final modifications. The UES Persistence hung in formation with her new squadron. The Breakthrough, the Defiant, and the Wayward. Quantum synchronization in 3, 2, 1. Chief Engineer Martinez's voice echoed through the command channel. Across all 4 ships, salvaged hegemony crystals pulsed in carefully calculated discord. Energy patterns rippled between the vessels, creating a web of controlled chaos that made reality itself seem to hiccup. "Power fluctuations holding at sustainable levels," reported Captain Lewis from the Breakthrough. "Though my science officer is crying in the corner, mumbling something about impossible mathematics. He'll get used to it," Reynolds assured him. "Diana, how's our quantum wake signature looking?" "Beautiful mess, ma'am. Each ship is generating its own unique interference pattern. Together, we're broadcasting what I like to call a symphony of wrongness across 12 different quantum frequencies." The test was interrupted by Lieutenant Rodriguez's urgent call. "Multiple contacts. Varaxian signatures detected in the Epsilon sector. They're hitting 12 systems simultaneously." Reynolds straightened in her chair. "This is it, people. Time to show them what happens when humans decide to weaponize dysfunction. All ships, execute Battle Plan Chaos 1. The 4-ship squadron jumped to quantum speed, their modified drives creating a wake that resembled an abstract painting having an existential crisis. They emerged in the Epsilon Tauri system, just as 3 Varaxian dreadnoughts were bearing down on the colony's orbital defenses. "Defensive Pattern Delta," Reynolds commanded. "Remember, don't try to fight the power fluctuations. Roll with them. The more unpredictable we are, the harder it is for them to target us." The human ships broke formation, each one's engines spewing quantum distortions in different patterns. On the Varaxian command channels they intercepted, confusion reigned. Unknown vessel configuration. Targeting systems cannot establish lock. Energy signatures non-coherent. "That's right," Reynolds smiled. "You can't hit what doesn't make sense. All ships, weapons free." The battle that followed would later be described by Confederation analysts as tactically unexplainable. The 4 human vessels seemed to flicker in and out of normal space, their hybrid weapons striking from impossible angles. The Defiant's quantum wake created a zone where Varaxian energy beams bent like light through a prism. The Wayward's modified shields absorbed enemy fire and reflected it back with added chaos. "Breakthrough, watch your port side," Reynolds called out as a Varaxian cruiser attempted to flank. "Persistence, showing them our special trick. Diana, give me the quantum pulse." The Persistence's hybrid drive overclocked, sending out a wave of pure chaos that disrupted the Varaxian ship's phase shift technology. For a crucial moment, they became fully solid, just in time to meet a barrage of modified weapons fire from all 4 human vessels. Enemy flagship destroyed, Rodriguez reported with satisfaction. Remaining Varaxian vessels they're retreating. All 12 systems reporting similar results from other human ships using our modifications. A channel opened from Confederation Command. Admiral Kane's hologram appeared, looking both impressed and disturbed. Commodore Reynolds, your tactics have proven effective. The Council has approved full implementation of your modifications across the human fleet. You're being promoted to lead the new task force. Thank you, sir, Reynolds replied. Though I should warn you, this is just the beginning. Diana has some new ideas about using quantum entanglement to make our ships even more unpredictable. Do I want to know the details? Probably not, sir. They involve breaking several more laws of physics and possibly making our ships exist in 5 dimensions at once. The Admiral sighed. Carry on, Commodore. Break whatever laws of physics you need to. Just try to fill out the paperwork in only 3 dimensions. As the transmission ended, Reynolds looked at her tactical display. The Varaxians had been driven back, but this was just one battle. The enemy would adapt, learn, try new tactics. But that was fine. Adaptation was what humans did best. Diana, she called to engineering. Let's talk about those 5-dimensional modifications. I think it's time to get really creative. I hate to say it, Chief Engineer Martinez announced to the crowded briefing room, but we need to make our ships even more wrong. The assembled engineers and captains of Task Force Chaos, now 50 ships strong, stare at the holographic display where the Persistence's power signature danced like a caffeinated quantum particle. Commodore Reynolds sat at the head of the table, trying not to smile as Martinez enthusiastically violated several more laws of physics. The Varaxians are starting to adapt to our current level of chaos. Martinez continued. So we're going to introduce something I call the Quantum Discord Engine. Each ship will run on a different frequency of impossible. Captain Lewis of the Breakthrough raised his hand. Quick question. When you say impossible, do you mean regular impossible or persistence impossible? Yes, Martinez grinned. The room groaned collectively. Reynolds stood up. Here's the situation, people. The Varaxians have developed countermeasures against our initial modifications. They're learning to track our quantum wake patterns, so we're going to change the game again. She nodded to Lieutenant Rodriguez, who pulled up tactical displays showing their latest encounters. They expect chaos now. They're looking for it. So we're going to give them order instead. But it'll be the wrong kind of order. Each ship in the task force will be modified differently, Martinez explained. The Persistence will run on crystal harmonics. The Breakthrough will use quantum probability drives. The Defiant is getting what I call a reality hiccup generator. When we fight together, the overlapping fields of quantum wrongness will create a kind of organized chaos. Like jazz, one of the engineers suggested. More like jazz played backwards in 5 dimensions while the instruments are questioning their own existence, Martinez corrected. The briefing continued as Martinez and Rodriguez laid out the technical specifications. Some of the more traditionally minded engineers looked physically pained as they watched simulations of ships performing maneuvers that violated fundamental principles of spacetime. Remember, Reynolds addressed the group, the Varaxians rely on perfect technology. Their phase shift weapons, their targeting systems, their tactical computers, everything is built on precise quantum calculations. We're going to show them that humanity's greatest weapon is our ability to embrace imperfection. The implementation took weeks. Each ship received unique modifications, no 2 exactly alike. The Persistence, as the flagship, became a testing ground for the most experimental systems. Martinez's Quantum Discord Engine proved to be a triumph of wrongness, creating energy patterns that somehow existed in a superposition of working and not working simultaneously. Status report. Reynolds called out during their first full task force exercise. The Wayward is generating inverse probability fields, Rodriguez reported. The Challenger's quantum wake is technically going backwards in time, but only on Tuesdays. The Intrepid exists in 3 different spatial configurations at once, and the Dauntless. Well, we're not quite sure what the Dauntless is doing, but it's doing it very effectively. Ma'am, Communications Officer Foster interrupted. Incoming transmission from Confederation Science Division. They're demanding we cease operations immediately. According to their calculations, we're, quote, creating localized regions where mathematics itself becomes uncertain. Reynolds keyed the comm. Tell them that's the point. Also remind them that uncertain mathematics is better than certain annihilation by the Varaxians. As if on cue, Martinez's voice came over the channel. Good news, Commodore. We've successfully weaponized the uncertainty principle. Bad news, I'm pretty sure we just made Schrödinger's cat very angry. Reynolds watched as her task force moved through space, each ship trailing its own unique pattern of quantum impossibility. The Varaxians had thought they were dealing with simple chaos before. Now they would face chaos refined into an art form, uncertainty shaped into a weapon. Task Force Chaos, she addressed her fleet. Execute Formation Delta. Let's show the galaxy what happens when humans decide to break physics properly. The ships moved into position, their overlapping fields of quantum discord, creating patterns that made reality itself seem to hold its breath. They weren't just breaking the rules anymore. They were rewriting them. In the distance, their sensors detected Varaxian scout ships watching. Reynolds smiled. Let them watch. Let them try to understand. They'd soon learn that trying to predict human ingenuity was like trying to nail quantum jelly to a wall in zero gravity during a temporal paradox. Well, Commodore Reynolds said as she stared at the tactical display, I think we made them angry. The largest Varaxian fleet ever detected had just emerged from quantum space near the Confederation capital. 300 warships, their phase shift technology humming with deadly purpose. The enemy had clearly decided to end this war with one massive strike. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, Foster reported from communications. They're saying, your quantum chaos cannot save you. We have adapted. We have evolved. We will remove the human infection from ordered space. Adapted, have they? Reynolds smiled. Diana, is everything ready? Oh yes. Martinez's voice held that special tone that usually preceded something spectacular and probably impossible. All ships report quantum discord engines synchronized. Reality distortion fields charged. The Dauntless is still technically existing last Thursday, but they say they'll catch up. Task Force Chaos hung in formation before the capital, 50 ships, each one a unique symphony of wrongness in the quantum field. The Persistence led from the center, its hybrid systems humming with barely controlled power. All ships, Reynolds broadcast to her fleet, execute Operation Perfect Storm. The human vessels began to move, but not in any pattern the Varaxians could have predicted. The breakthroughs spiral through 4-dimensional space, leaving a wake of quantum static. The Defiance reality hiccup generator created pockets where probability itself took a coffee break. The Wayward somehow managed to be in 3 places at once, none of them where it actually was. Enemy fleet is launching their attack, Rodriguez reported. New weapon configuration detected. They're trying to match our quantum patterns. Perfect, Reynolds grinned. They took the bait. Diana, initiate the resonance cascade. The Persistence's quantum discord engine spooled up to impossible levels. Every jury-rigged system, every salvaged crystal, every piece of technology that shouldn't work but did. All of it synchronized into what Martinez had dubbed the Symphony of Wrongness. All ships, Reynolds commanded, release your chaos on my mark. Now. 50 vessels, each operating on different quantum frequencies, suddenly synchronized their impossible drives. The overlapping fields of distortion created a massive quantum blind spot, a region where the Varaxians' perfect targeting systems simply couldn't process what they were seeing. Their computers are trying to compensate, Foster reported, listening to the enemy's confused communications. They're crashing. Their targeting systems can't handle the quantum feedback. That's because they're looking for patterns, Martins explained gleefully. We're giving them 50 different patterns that add up to nothing. It's like trying to divide by zero, while dancing the Macarena in 11 dimensions. The Varaxian fleet, for the first time, showed signs of disarray. Their perfect formation wavered as ships tried to target enemies that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. All ships, weapons free. Reynolds ordered, "Show them what chaos can do." The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for decades to come. Human vessels phased through enemy formations, their hybrid weapons striking from angles that shouldn't exist. The Persistence led the charge, its quantum wake creating a cascade of impossibilities that turned the enemy's advanced technology against them. Their flagship is attempting to retreat, Rodriguez announced. The rest of their fleet is losing coherence. They can't maintain their phase shift fields. Not so easy when the laws of physics stop playing nice, is it? Reynolds watched as the mighty Varaxian armada began to break apart. Diana, one last surprise. Show them our new quantum torpedo. The Persistence's main guns fired a weapon that Martinez had crafted from pure theoretical impossibility. It streaked across space, existing in 7 different quantum states at once, before detonating in the heart of the enemy fleet. The explosion rippled through multiple layers of reality, turning the Varaxians' perfect phase shift technology into their perfect vulnerability. Enemy fleet is in full retreat, Foster confirmed. They're actually running away. Reynolds watched as the survivors fled, their once perfect formation now scattered like leaves in a quantum hurricane. Send to all ships. The enemy has learned an important lesson today. Never pick a fight with people crazy enough to weaponize their own mistakes. Around her, Task Force Chaos regrouped, their impossible drives painting quantum art across the stars. They had done it. They had turned chaos into victory. I still can't believe they're actually doing this, Admiral Jessica Reynolds muttered, watching as maintenance crews polished the Persistence's scarred hull. The ship that had once been the fleet's greatest joke now hung in a place of honor at Confederation Station Prime, being prepared for its new role as a museum ship. Well, they had to do something with her after you got promoted. Martins grinned, now wearing the insignia of Fleet Engineering Director. Though I have to admit, seeing her without any quantum irregularities feels wrong. Like she's too normal. Speaking of normal, Rodriguez joined them at the observation window, his tactical officer's uniform replaced with an instructor's colors. You should see what the new cadets are doing at the academy. They're actually competing to see who can make their training ships malfunction in the most creative ways. Reynolds laughed. Please tell me they named that competition after us. The Reynolds Roundup, Foster confirmed, stepping up beside them. The former communications officer now headed the Confederation's Quantum Communications Division. First prize is a piece of the Persistence's original toaster-based control panel. They watched as a group of touring officials approached the ship. The Confederation Council members, once so dismissive of human engineering quirks, now proudly showed off the vessel that had changed the face of space warfare. And here, they heard one guide explain, is where Chief Engineer Martinez first discovered how to weaponize the uncertainty principle. The scorch marks are still visible, though we're told they sometimes quantum shift to other parts of the hull on Tuesdays. You know what the best part is? Martins said quietly. The Varaxians sent diplomats last week. They want to establish trade relations, specifically for human engineering expertise. Apparently, they've decided that a little chaos might improve their systems. How times change, Reynolds mused. Remember when Admiral Kane bet we wouldn't last 6 months? Oh, that reminds me. Foster pulled out a datapad. The Admiral sent a message. The new Persistence-class destroyers are ready for trials. Each one deliberately built with different imperfections, just like you suggested. Through the window, they could see one of the new ships performing maneuvers. Its quantum wake painted impossible patterns across space, its hybrid systems humming with carefully controlled chaos. The design philosophy that had once been mocked as dangerous human recklessness was now taught as adaptive quantum engineering. "Ma'am," a young ensign approached their group. "They're ready for the ceremony." Reynolds nodded, straightening her admiral's uniform. In the station's main hall, hundreds of officers, human and alien alike, had gathered to celebrate the official designation of the Persistence as a historical landmark. As she took the podium, Reynolds looked out at the faces before her. Veterans of Task Force Chaos sat alongside Confederation officials who had once tried to court-martial her. Engineering students who had grown up hearing about the Lucky Dumpster now studied its systems as examples of revolutionary design. 10 years ago, she began, this ship was considered a joke. A dangerous combination of salvaged parts and impossible modifications that should never have worked. The Confederation's finest minds told us we were wrong. That our chaos would doom us. That our imperfections would be our downfall. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the audience. Instead, those imperfections saved us all. The Persistence taught us that sometimes the best solutions aren't the perfect ones. Sometimes you need to embrace the chaos, break a few laws of physics, and trust that human ingenuity will find a way. Behind her, through the massive station windows, the original Persistence caught the light of the system's star. Its battle-scarred hull told a story of determination, innovation, and the peculiar human talent for turning weaknesses into strengths. Today, we don't just honor a ship, we honor an idea. The idea that being different isn't a flaw, it's an advantage. That breaking the rules isn't always wrong. Sometimes it's exactly what the universe needs. As if in agreement, the Persistence's quantum-modified hull chose that moment to shimmer slightly, its scorch marks briefly rearranging themselves into what looked suspiciously like a wink. Some things, it seemed, never changed. And that was exactly how it should be.